Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, my dear students. How are you? I hope you'd be fine. I'm here with a new video which is related to chapter number 4, the Carew Murder Case. Today we are going to discuss the question and answers because we have already covered the explanation of this chapter in the previous video. I hope you have been through it, and still if you haven't been through it, I'll provide you with the description with the link in the description box. Go watch that and then come back, and then you can have the question and answers. Let's begin the question and answers given on page number 48. They are A to H and then a difficult question. So question number 1A says, what phrase does the author use at the start of the text to show the reader that time has passed? What phrase? So we have to focus on this word phrase. Before starting to write the answer, we shall understand that word, phrase, clause and sentence are different parts of the language. Word is basically a composition of letters which gives us some meaning. Phrase is a group of words but without a verb, right? It is a group of words, but it does not give us a complete meaning. Whereas clause is the complete. It may be a complete sentence, or it may be a part of a sentence. What does it mean? It means that a sentence may consist of one clause, or it may have more than one clause, right? So what we are going to do, we are going to find out the group of words, right, without any verb that the author has used at the start of the text. So we are going to go back to the start of the text and we have to find out the answer there in the beginning of the text. What phrase do we need to find out? We need to find out the phrase that shows the reader that time has passed. What does it mean? It means that we need to find out a phrase that tells us the story has been conducted in past. The time has passed. Time has moved on. ठीक है? तो यहाँ पर हमसे सवाल किया गया है कि कौन सा ऐसा फ्रेज ऑथर ने यूज किया है जो इस बात को इंडिकेट कर रहा है कि वक्त गुजर चुका है, ये पुरानी बात स्टार्ट की गई है. So if you come to page number 45, the very first line, nearly a year later. Nearly a year later. This phrase shows that time has passed. Now part B. Who were the two men involved in the crime and how did the witness feel about each of them? Who were the two men involved? Now we need to find out the two men involved in the crime. Who were the two Who were the two men? That were, one must be the victim and the other would be the criminal. So who were those two persons and how did the witness? Now this is the part number 2 of question number B, that how did the witness feel about each of them? So the answer to this question is one of the men who were involved in the crime was Sir Danvers Carew, who was the victim, and the other was Mr. Hyde, right? So these were the two men who were involved in the crime. And now the witness, who was the maid, she had different views about both of them. So let's find out how she felt about both of them. About Sir Danvers Carew, you can see the older man bowed and accosted the other with a very, very pretty manner of politeness. So basically the maid adored Mr. Sir Danvers Carew, whereas to Mr. Hyde, who had once visited her master, maid's master, and for whom she had conceived a dislike. So she disliked the Mr. Hyde. So the answer to part A is nearly a year later. This is the phrase. And the answer to part B, the two men involved in the crime were the victim, Sir Danvers Carew, and the criminal, Mr. Hyde. This is part A answer. And part B, the witness who was made, did not like Mr. Hyde, but she admired the victim, old gentleman who was Sir Danvers Carew, for his very pretty manner of politeness. Then comes part number C. Which type of animal is the angry murderer compared to? That is, which type of animal is Mr. Hyde compared to? The answer to this question is on page number 46 in the very first paragraph, that he hailed down a storm of blows, and the horror of these sights and sounds the maid fainted. So basically, here's the answer. And next moment, with ape-like furry. This is Mr. Hyde, and he was having ape-like furry. Means ape is an animal that is similar to monkey, so he was compared to a monkey. So the answer to part number C is the angry murderer was compared to an ape. Now part number D. What is Mr. Utterson's profession? So he was basically a lawyer by profession. The answer is very simple. Mr. Utterson is a lawyer. Here comes part E. What was Mr. Utterson's reaction to hearing about the crime and seeing the weapon? What was his reaction? We have to find out the reaction of Mr. Utterson when he heard about crime and when he saw the weapon. Here is the answer. Mr. Utterson had already quailed at the name of Hyde. So it was the reaction when he heard the name of Mr. Hyde and when he heard about the crime. Quailed means to stuck with fear. So the answer to the part E is Mr. Utterson quailed when he heard about the crime and saw the weapon. He looks serious and feels gloomy. That is, he got upset when he heard about the crime. Now part F. What do we learn about the old woman who works for Mr. Hyde? What do we learn? That is, what we come to know about the old woman who works for Mr. Hyde. You'll find the answer on page number 47 about her. Actually, we have to describe her appearance, that how she looked like and what were her manners. So an ivory-faced and silvery-haired old woman opened the door. She had an evil face smoothed by hypocrisy, but her manners were excellent. This is what the author is describing her, and how she looked like. Yes, she said this was Mr. Hyde's, but he was not at home. He had been in that night very late. So now she is telling about Mr. Hyde, and moreover, a flash of odious joy appeared upon the woman's face. So this was about her character, that how she was. So we are going to write the answer as we learned that the old woman who works for Mr. Hyde had an evil face, was smooth by hypocrisy, but her manners were excellent. She has a flash of hateful joy on her face when she realizes that Mr. Hyde might be in trouble. So it was the description provided us by the author. Here comes part number G. Why will it be difficult for the inspector and Mr. Utterson to find Mr. Hyde? What were the difficulties that they are going to face finding Mr. Hyde? Why it was difficult for them to find out Mr. Hyde? You'll find the answer at the bottom of the page on page number 47, that this, however, was not so easy to accomplish, that is, to find out Mr. Hyde, because few people knew Mr. Hyde. Even the master of the servant maid had only seen him twice. His family could nowhere be traced. He had never been photographed, and the few who could describe him differed widely as common observers. Well, right? So these were the points that made difficult to find Mr. Hyde. So we are going to write the answer. It will be difficult for the inspector and Mr. Utterson to find Mr. Hyde because few people knew him and he had no family, had never been photographed, had not been seen often, and was described in wildly different ways by those who had seen him. This was the answer to part number G. And here comes part number H. Which word meaning searched vigorously is used to describe the state of Mr. Hyde's room? So basically we have to find out the word which means searched vigorously. Vigorously means searching something in such a manner to make a mess, to where the things or belongings are kept. Right? So what is the word that is used which means searched vigorously when describing the state of Mr. Hyde's room? So the word is ransacked, which means search vigorously. Now let's discuss the reference to context. Here we have two reference to context. We have been provided with sentence, and then all of a sudden he broke out in a great flame of anger. Who is angry? Who is angry? This is Mr. Hyde. This is the scene that has been taken from the text, and this text belongs to the part where Mr. Hyde got angry in the beginning of the story. And who is he angry with? That is, who is the person on whom Mr. Hyde was getting angry? It was Sir Danvers Carew. Number 3, does he have any reason to be angry? That was Mr. Hyde having some reason behind that he was getting angry? Not according to the witness. He had no reason for getting angry. So the witness told us that he got angry without any reason. So no, he had no reason to get angry. And how does the maid describe his behavior? Whose behavior? Mr. Hyde's behavior. So she described and she told us that it was like that of a madman with ape-like furry. This is the answer. That is, his behavior was like an ape. And here comes part B. This will make a deal of noise. Part 1 says, who is the speaker? Speaker is Inspector Newcomen of Scotland Yard, who is being spoken to Mr. Utterson. That is, he has been addressed. And what does he mean and why will it make a deal of noise? So basically, inspector means that it will cause a sensation and be talked about and written about in the news. This is because the victim is an important man, Sir Danvers Carew. So it will make a deal of noise because the victim was an important man, Sir Danvers Carew. So here we have completed exercise A, which was related to comprehension. We have covered almost all the question and answers. I hope students, you would have got a lot of information out of it, and it would really help you while solving the exercise. Still, if you have any sort of questions, you can ask me in the comment section. Please like the video, share it with your friends, and if you are new, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching the video. Take care. Allah Hafiz.